All right, welcome to the Real Estate Life podcast. So on this podcast, we are dedicated to creating a life of passive income through real estate and doing things that we love along the way. Today, I have a special guest, a good friend of mine's, I would say one of my closest boys, and I have Isael Prieto with Stratwell. They have over
What's
1
going
billion
on?
of real estate sales from 2010. I mean, these guys average over 300 transactions a year. They work very closely with mortgage servicers, asset managers, and traditional sales and buyers. They also specialize in distress sales. Isael, welcome to the show, man.
What's going on, Abiel? Hey, thanks for having me on. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. I know we always talk about getting on these things, and I'm happy to finally have it come to light, man. Really.
I mean, I
Thanks
mean,
for
I
having
think
me
I
on.
talked to, yeah, I think I talked to you about this 2 years ago, and it took me 2 years to gather myself to actually put this together. And you were always
But dude, let me
encouraging. I
tell you
think you
something.
were,
It was well worth it, though. I mean, I see your
yeah,
efforts. I see your
uh,
posting. I see all your content.
it's,
You have it all put together now, man.
dude, I'm
Way
having
better than
fun
me.
doing it. Yeah, you know what I could tell people is that I psyched myself so much, but now I'm having fun doing this. It's actually enjoyable. I get to talk to people like you and other experts in the business, and it gives me an excuse to force them to talk to me about subjects that maybe they won't talk about. And
Sure.
first I want people to know who Isael Prieto is, and for those that don't know, how did you get into real estate, and how did you build? First, let's start. How did you get into real estate?
All right, so I started at 15 when I was 15 years old. I saw my brother-in-law, who's been a big mentor to me, who was dating my sister at the time. They had just got married, and he was managing a Coldwell Banker office. And I liked the whole transacting and putting people together. I did that naturally as a human. I tend to really build deep relationships with people and really understand people and get in their position and see how I can help. And connecting people to me has always been exciting. And so then I basically came along with him and helped him market, right? I did a lot of flyers. I did a lot of door knocking, right? A lot of people, because of the presence of my brother-in-law, who he is, he's very big in the institutional world. A lot of people thought that he kind of just handed me off, accounts, and all you got to do is just go out there and do it. And it actually was a complete opposite of that. He treated me harder than everybody else and made me door knock, right? In areas where I never, ever felt comfortable. I was 15 years old, 16 years old with an oversized long sleeve shirt, right, that I stole from him. Made my own flyer called Real, right? It was real estate acquisition and lending. And basically, I had no idea what I was going after, but I would knock on the door and ask them if they wanted to sell their house. And I bought my
Yeah.
first fourplex in Opalaca like that. And I just got a liking to the investment side. And then it just followed and branched out into retail real estate. And now what we are today, really, is just a machine of single family residential sales, really.
Yeah. So just for the listeners to understand, so when I met Isael, it was back in 2014, and I joined his team to make to gather and execute contracts on a ton of residential properties for Invitation Homes. I remember when I joined this team, I just couldn't believe the volume of properties that we were buying for that group of single family homes for their rental,
Yep.
for it to buy and hold a model. And throughout that process, working with you guys is what I really got to see what, that other side of the industry, which you guys specialize in, which is, working with these type of investors and these type of companies that do things in a large scale. And
Yeah.
I know that you and Eddie have a strong background in asset management, working with these mortgage servicers. So whenever I see something happening in the market or I start hearing rumors, I always call you and Eddie, and because there's one thing that you hear the news and the news media and you see, oh, the market, what's going on with the market. And when I thought about, I need to get Isael on the show, which is the number one question that me and you get asked all the time. So I'm just going to go get straight
Sure.
to it. Are
Yeah.
we in a bubble? Are we going into a market crash like 2008? That is the first thing I get asked, at least 2 or 3. I get asked by the waitress in a restaurant. I get asked by my family members. They ask me the same question every other week. I get
Of
asked
course.
by my friends. And you know what? It's a fair thing to ask, because when you look at the news and you see the inventory and you see the prices, and you know that I've gone into more on the commercial side. It's a little bit different, but I still have to pay attention to what's happening on the residential side. Give
Of course.
me give me what you see in the current state of market, what you're seeing right now.
I mean, so inventory is definitely it's extremely scarce, right? And a lot of it has to do with migration of population. Really, a lot of the people coming from up north, right, are coming down because of taxes, right? We're having tax breaks. We're having the biggest boom, right, in tech history, right? Trying to move all these companies from Silicon Valley. Francis Suarez, right, city of Miami is doing an amazing job bringing in these huge hubs of businesses, right, that are set to employ a lot of people, and they're basically setting the pace for us to look like another New York, right? Do I think like, to answer your question directly, do I think that this market is in a bubble? I really don't think so. I don't think that we're seeing a direct residential bubble. I think what we're seeing is an overall inflation across the board, right? And I think that if there is any crash to come, one of my only things that I see, and just because of the way the history repeats itself over and over, right? I recently saw a documentary on capital, right? On basically just our government's capital, right? And the way that we rebuild our capital, right? And there's always a devastation in our market. There's always some sort of bubble after a 15, 20-year period, whether it be a war, whether it be some sort of financial crisis in our economy, whether it be a segmented burst in our real estate economy, social issues, right, that took place back in the 70s and 50s. I think we were quick to forget, right, all of these times that our market has crashed. And so with this pace, I think it's a new generation coming in. And I think that it's not going to be directly a housing market bubble. I think it's an overall market crash if we do see one. But the way that inflation is rising right now, and just all the policies that are ran, affordable housing coming back into topics again, right? That just only leads me to believe that we're on track for continued growth, right? And if you see back-to-back reports from Goldman Sachs, from these big funds that are analyzing our overall economy, they're saying we still got a good 3-4 more years of burst, right? Before we see, or not burst, I would say growth, before we see some sort of devastation, right? And my thing that I'm looking at constantly is a 10-year treasury bond, right? I'm looking at that to see, because banks tend to lend on that, right? That's the cost of money for banks. So if that raises, right, if that starts to rise, which it has trickled up, that tends to basically cause mortgage rates to go up. So then that slows down acquisitions. But man, with all this money coming in, I mean, we're seeing it in our inventory. I mean, we're pretty predominant in terms of listings, and we're seeing 100 people showing up, walking around. I mean, literally lines wrapping around to get inside of a property, right? And that has nothing to do with COVID. I think it's really just the fact that there's nothing available, and people are trying to secure some sort of asset in that asset class.
Well, you know what? It's interesting that you said something in the beginning about migration, and you know, this conversation is mostly, we're talking about South Florida. That's your market and that's your niche.
Correct.
But when you want to see migration pattern, not all the markets are seeing what you just mentioned. There's markets in the United
Correct.
States that is the complete opposite. So,
yep.
You know, so for those listeners out there that they're in different cities and all that, I would strongly suggest that you study your personal market. Yeah, Miami, you know, Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, most of Florida. There's actually some cities in Florida that are not getting this type of migration, that inventory. It's pretty interesting to see that there's some pockets in Florida that are not this hot. But I do agree, there is markets where that migration is happening in Florida, and people from Chicago, from up north, you know, they're going to Texas, they're going to North Carolina, Tennessee. Tennessee right now is #1 in migration patterns. I like to use that to gather that data. I like to use moving companies that have the most accurate data, where they're picking up and dropping off people. For some reason, Tennessee is the place where people are going. But Florida, definitely super attractive. When you mentioned that, you know, that you have lines going out to property, is it because people just don't want to sell because they're just afraid where else they're going to buy? Is it a pattern, or is it just there's a lack of new construction where people can move into? What is it you think that's happening there?
Man, that's a great question. Honestly, I really feel that a lot of people have some sort of just PTSD, right, from the first bubble, right? And so what happens right now is that or at least, I mean, the only logic that I could see behind it, right, from the low inventory is first, just absorption is out of control, right? So purchasing is crazy. So the inventory just doesn't last as long on the inventory on the market. And then you have sellers also that are like thinking that same thing, right? Yeah, I could sell my house for $1 million, but what am I going to do with that $1 million? Because now everything else is that much more expensive, right?
I think me and you
So
always
then
talk
you're
about
seeing
that.
people holding.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Dude, we
Yeah.
sell now.
You're seeing.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about that personally in our own personal homes, right? Like, what do we do, right? Like, is it the time? Can we go out and afford a bigger, better house, right? Sure. Is it the right time? I don't know. You kind of get scared because you don't want to get caught with your pants down like you did in 06 and 07, where the mortgage crisis hit and everybody was losing their houses, right? And it was just lending was very loose. Everything was just so easy to get into trouble, right? And that's kind of what it feels like right now, aside from the absorption of the migration coming in here. And so I think that a lot of sellers now are like just saying, hey, I mean, that's great. I'll maybe pull a line, I'll refi, I'll better my financial state, right? But I think personal debt is really low still compared to what we've seen in 06 and 07. And I just think people are not willing to transfer their equity into a property that they might go underwater with in the future, or at least feel like they may go underwater in the future. You're seeing a lot more people being more savvy in terms of investments. They're focusing on their 401ks. People are a lot more savvy in terms financially than they were 2006 and 7, I believe. There's a lot more education out there. There's a lot more social media. There's a lot more just connection to the public. And I think I don't see it. I don't know. I don't really can't explain why there isn't that much inventory, but that could probably be one of the biggest factors of it.
Yeah. Now, do you ever give advice to someone, just say, like, just go rent a property?
Man,
I know it's completely contradicting,
yes.
because that is one of the things that I tell sometimes my friends and family and people. I'm like, why are you going so crazy trying to buy a house right now? Like, it's okay, man. Just go rent.
Yeah.
Is the I know as a commission in sales, that's kind of like a thing, but
no, and that's irrelevant to us, right? It really, yeah. I mean, if I get to assess someone's scenario, and anybody that's listening here, right, feel free to reach out to me at any point, right? If you have any property in South Florida, we have offices on the West Coast and on the East Coast, and we can basically assess anybody's scenario and tell you what your options are and what your best route should be, right? Sometimes that entails not selling, right, or entails not buying, right? I will say interest rates are at an all-time low, so I can understand people purchasing. And then the reason why I kind of don't tell people to go rent is because I think inflation is coming, right? And because inflation comes, you want to be able to secure as many assets as you can right now. We're in an asset run right now, and everyone is trying to secure an asset. Because think about it. If you have your money sitting in a bank account right now, right, and the value of your money goes down, your purchasing power goes down, right? Now you just worked so hard to have so much money saved and put away for a rainy day, and now it doesn't even go far, right? Yeah. So what people are doing now is they're saying, hey, I'd rather not have that much cash in the bank. I'll have liquidity in terms of assets, right? But if inflation goes up, my asset value goes up, so I'm safe. My money's safe, right? If it starts to go down, so that's what I'm saying, that people are a lot more savvy in that arena. And I think that has to do a lot with the access to information that we have right now.
Yeah, I agree that the best way, there's nothing that we could do about what's happening with inflation. So, I always try to figure out, all right, I can't do anything about what's happening with inflation, but what can I do to put me in a better position with the inflation that's going on? And, we have a construction company that is constantly monitoring the cost of goods and the cost of materials. For those that are, the value of wood and the cost of wood and metal has skyrocketed. So, when you buy a piece of real estate or a piece of asset or real estate that has the wood in it, that has the metal in it, that has all the materials that go into that property are in it. So one of the things that we found in our business is the best way to fight inflation is refinancing and taking advantage of these low rates. These rates are historical. Yeah. If you know and you understand the value of buying right and using debt the right way and using inflation to balance out by low interest rates, you in 5-10 years, you just did so good for yourself. I would like for
Yep.
listeners to understand that is one of the best ways to fight inflation is by securing low debt, get yourself out of those high interest rates. We just closed a deal on 15-year mortgage for 2.35 on a residential property. 2.35 for 15 years. I mean, come on,
That's
man.
insane.
That's to me, that's
free money. That's free money.
It's free money.
Yeah.
Like, if you're strategic like that, you're going to do great. But you got to educate yourself and find the right lenders, the right people to help you put this together. Now, Isai, I'm a buyer right now in the market, and I'm eager to get in. I'm hyped up. I know that it's hard to find a deal, but I do see a lot of, there's still opportunities out there, but the opportunities sometimes are just not in the MLS. The opportunities are not in Zillow. That's in a mass scale. If I'm a buyer and you see me eager and I come to you, what will be your first advice to me?
It depends on the strategy, right? So what are we?
I'm a traditional.
What type of buyer are you? Are you an investor or retail?
I'm an investor.
Occupant?
I'm an investor. I want to take advantage of these low interest rates, and I want to make a little bit of money on an investment, rent a property out.
Got it. So what we're seeing right now is a lot of the multifamily really is really, I see a lot of people just going conventional financing because your cash on cash return is there. There's still some inventory that comes out. Obviously the hot stuff, and what we recommend to anybody looking for, if you want the deals, you have to go direct, right? You have to knock on doors, make your own flyers, right? Hire a VA to cold call for you. Go out and pass out flyers yourself and try to meet these sellers face to face, right? The old school way of really just doing what other people aren't right now. A lot of people are just sending letters. A lot of people are fearing of rejection. So the best deals we've ever seen and ever come across has been literally just relationship based. So knocking on doors, trying to get to sellers direct, right? Putting your name out there as a buyer, right? If you're looking for an investment deal, right? If you're willing to start off and you want to start off with a duplex or a triplex, I tell people just to reach out to the listing agents directly and try to build a relationship with them and let them know more or less what you're looking for. I've seen multiple YouTube videos that really talk about how to approach listing agents, right? You don't just want to call and say, hey, when you got a good deal, just call me, right? It doesn't mean anything to anyone, right? But now if you say, hey, I'm trying to tap into the market, I have some cash, I'm maybe looking for a 6, 7, 8% return, right? And now you understand what you're looking for, right? And then you advise the agent that you're looking outside of that, right? That if you have something else that's somewhat around this parameters, or you feel that there's an add value, I would be more than interested. I'd be more than happy to look at it and underwrite and give you a word or decision quickly. I think those are the best strategy tips, I think, for a buyer looking to get into the market right now. That's what I've seen has the most success, right? And then don't be discouraged. There are deals out there on the MLS that still make sense, right? There's scenarios and agents. There's so many agents out there also that are novice, right, and really don't know what they're doing, right? And that leaves some meat on the table for an investor to really eat off of and buy a good opportunity. I've seen some deals where agents just do a disservice to their sellers, right, and they don't know any better, and then a buyer can take advantage of that. So definitely, who you hire, who you work with, and how you build those relationships goes a long way.
Yeah, and I always advise me myself. So I'm always a buyer in the multifamily sector, and I know exactly the product that I'm looking for. And sometimes I do get derailed because I see something pop up that I'm like, oh, that's a good deal, but it doesn't fit my criteria. And I might go down the rabbit hole and waste some time looking at that. And I'm always trying to stay disciplined online that, okay, this is my criteria. This is what my investors want. So that's the advice also. Know exactly what your product, exactly what you want. If you don't know that yet, you need to start doing some homework before they come to an expert like you to find a deal. That would help out the process. Know exactly what you want. Have your expectations or an idea of what you want to make, a realistic number.
Absolutely.
Do you think that, we just came on the news that the mortgage forbearance has been extended to December? I'll jump back to that topic.
Sure.
I see it piling up. I see The evictions are being extended. The sheriff office, I'm having that personal issues where there's no evictions are not happening. They're taking very long. If they're happening at a very slow pace. There's a lot of investors out there that can't sell their properties because they can't evict their tenants. There's a lot of investors out there that are took on the mortgage forbearance. They're not paying their property taxes. That type of investor that's going through that, you don't think that that's going to pop open and allow more inventory to hit the market? You don't think that's going to affect the market in a negative way?
Personally, I don't think so. I think it probably will, but I don't think it's such a detriment to our market. And because the absorption is so high, right? I think that as those properties even start to hit the market, right, they'll be gobbled up, right, because of the bent up demand that there is for the lack of inventory. So, like I said, I don't think it is a direct housing market crash, right? I don't think we're going to see. Sure, is that going to do a negative effect to our market? I believe so. But nothing that's going to be like 2006 or 7, where we saw, 120%, basically drop in our market,
Correct.
or, a 75% drop in our market, where you were buying properties for under construction costs, right? You picked up a bunch of multifamilies, right? When we were listing them and selling them, you were one of my main buyers buying multifamily from me. And I remember we couldn't sell them at those prices, right? They would still go under reduction. Properties that were listed, triplexes for $60,000, right? That are now worth $600,000. It's crazy. Yeah. So if that market if that forbearance, does a negative effect to the market, it's going to be something around 10%, 15% to market. And it's going to be certain asset classes. I think investors are going to probably feel it the most. But then again, lenders are smarter this time. They verified more documents, right? They have leverage on those houses. They have 30, some of those are at 70% LTVs, 50% LTVs compared to market value right now. So they're either sell at auction, right? At the foreclosure auction, an investment company will buy it because they're there and they're acquiring right now. So I don't think it'll even hit the retail market at such a large scale.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I think that right now, I'm going to speak now as South Florida. I think that we have about like a month of inventory, from what the last data I looked at. If we need at least 6 months of inventory to be in a good market, the lack of inventory. Market, sure. Yeah, leveled market, correct. So we're so far from that. It's just I agree with you on that in that sense. So for those listeners out there that want that answer. Are we in a bubble? We just answered it right now. No, I think that we are in a strong real estate market. I agree with you. I don't know if we'll go 4 years. I have my theories about that. I think that we do have a solid year to 2 years. That's just me being, my scare side. Because I am still traumatized with that last one.
The PTSD from 2006 and 7.
But I think that I'm confident with what's going on with the resident market, and we should see it strong for the next 2 years.
Absolutely.
It's Isael, for those listeners out there that would like to get in touch with you and get advice from you, and you could help them buy their properties. How can they get a hold of you?
You can reach me, Isael, Isael, at stratwellrealestate.com. Or you could on Instagram, Isael_Prieto_Stratwell. Or you can find us on Facebook at Stratwell, RE.
Man,
and you can follow us there. You could drop a message. We have a YouTube channel as well, Stratwell. We've been slow on the content lately. We're really hitting hard. And then, like I said, and it's a consistency, right, of putting out content and information. So definitely feel free to reach out on any of those avenues. If you have a property you want us to look at and give you some sort of opinion on or a CMA on, we're more than happy to do so. If you own a group of properties, right, and our main focus is to minimize risk and maximize profits, right? And so if you're looking to sell a portfolio of properties, we're an expert in doing so. And then acquiring properties as well. So whatever we can do to help, feel free I think there's a button somewhere in this thing.
We'll
There's going to be a link down there, up there.
Yeah. All right, Isael, man. Thank you, man. Thanks for giving me the time. And now the listeners can know that, we're good. We got a nice run coming up.
Absolutely.
Let's enjoy it. Let's have fun doing it.
Take advantage of it. Absolutely. And don't be afraid to invest and give Abiel some money, man. So you put it in the right places. He's always done well.
I'll try and send it your way. All right, brother. Thank you, man. Thanks for your time.
Hey, have a beautiful day. Thank you again for having me on.
Take care. All right.
All right, my man. Bye.